Chapter 11. The Honeymoon's Over. When I was very young, not even 7, I think, I believed that my parents had been together all their lives. I had seen pictures of them as children, of course, and seen pictures of them with their own parents, but none that seemed real to me. I remember I thought that family albums and old photographs were like children's books, fairy tales and legends. How could my parents have a life before the life I knew? They were always there, immortal, frozen in time, forever young. Daddy was always Daddy, firm, strong, smelling of cigars, his footsteps heavy, loud on the stairs, his laughter resonant, manly. Mother was always Mother, dainty, soft, and full of smiles, redolent of perfume, her clothes colorful, and her steps as light as her laughter, feminine. Not until I was much older did I begin to wonder about Mother's first day of her new life with Daddy. When she returned from her honeymoon, did she enter her home full of excitement, eager to explore every moment of her new identity? Or was she terrified that she had made a disastrously wrong decision? Daddy didn't carry her over the threshold. I know. She used to tease him for not having done that. Belinda and I often heard how he was too busy ordering his servants and supervising the uploading of luggage. I was sure she had entered the house first and stood there thinking, this is my new world, for better or for worse. I'm here. I wondered if she had the urge to turn and run out. Samuel offered to carry me over the threshold, but I refused. It's a silly tradition. It makes no sense to me, I said, pushing him away. Never say I didn't offer, he declared and stepped aside for me to enter the new home. Actually, I could have used some assistance by that time. We had, as the weather report had predicted, good sailing weather for our honeymoon, and we did all the things Samuel had planned for us to do on the trip. Including docking at ports, going to fine restaurants, but instead of returning refreshed and exuberant, I found myself feeling worn and frazzled. We had made love a number of times, and it did get more pleasurable for me, but he always seemed to enjoy it more than I did, and that bothered me. The day before the end of our honeymoon, my period came. It wasn't supposed to, but I was never regular as most women. When I told him, he immediately said I shouldn't feel bad. I didn't. I wasn't complaining. I actually felt relieved, but I let him be the way that he wanted. I had a great deal of input into what our home would look like, of course. Samuel didn't disagree with any suggestion I made, even when I insisted that we have separate bedrooms in our home. He was satisfied that we had an adjoining doorway. It'll be like the romantic adventure every time I come to you, Olivia, he said, when we first considered the architect's plans and included my revisions. I'll knock softly and you can say, who's there? And we'll pretend we're meeting secretly. I think we're both too old for games and pretending, Samuel. Oh, you're never too old when it comes to that sort of thing, Olivia. You can leave the lights off as you like, and I'll make it believe that I'm a handsome stranger who's passing your lit window and saw you gazing out, he said with a dashing smile. Ridiculous, I said, but I did feel my heart flutter with the images that crossed my mind, especially a fantasy that involved Nelson Childs. In my daydreams, Samuel had told him of our little games, and he came to my house when Samuel was away. He knocked on the adjoining door, and I turned off the light, not knowing until he was beside me that it was Nelson and not Samuel. I felt myself blush with the illusion. Samuel laughed, snapping me back to reality. "Are you teasing me, Samuel?" "No. Well, maybe just a little. But that's what loving husbands do, Olivia." "Not in this house, in this marriage," I announced. He laughed again, but he saw the firmness in my eyes and grew serious. "Well then, we'll behave as you wish, respectable to the core of our very beings, even when we make love," he said. He knew how that expression annoyed me. What a ridiculous way to put it. Make love, as if love was something that was born out of lust. I saw to it that there was a lock on the adjoining door, and even though it was unspoken, it was understood that whenever the lock was in place, I would rather he didn't come to me. I had already decided it would be in place quite often. "You can rest assured I'll never lock the door from my side, Olivia," he quipped. "And you can rest assured that I will never come into your room for any purpose other than to discuss something in private, Samuel. I'm not aggressive in that regard," I pointed out. He smiled. "Unlike your sister," he replied. "What do you know of Belinda?" I demanded. "Only what your father told me, confided in me," he said quickly. Then he smiled. "I can see why men are thankful when their wives give birth to sons." "Belinda can drive anyone to thinking that way," I agreed. As soon as we had settled in after the honeymoon, I decided to visit my father to see how he was getting on. When I got to the home, even though it was the middle of the afternoon, the house was dark and all the curtains were drawn. There was no light in the entryway or in any of the rooms. I thought no one was at home, not even Carmelita. I stood there for a moment listening, hoping to hear someone. But I didn't even hear Belinda's idle chatter. At first I thought Daddy wasn't there. It was too dark and the curtains closed, no lamps lit. I was about to turn away and go upstairs to see if Belinda was in her room when I heard the small moan and stepped further into the den. I saw Daddy asleep on the leather chair, slumped, with his arms dangling over the sides, his head resting on his right shoulder. Beside the chair on the floor was an open bottle of bourbon and a glass with 2 fingers of liquor in it. I turned on the reading lamp above the desk, and the light washed over Daddy, revealing he hadn't shaved in days. His white shirt was open at the collar, and it was stained by food and bourbon. His hair looked like he'd been running his fingers through it for hours. He grunted, licked his lips, and then shifted in his chair. "Daddy," I said. He grimaced as if the word brought him pain, but he didn't open his eyes. "Daddy." I shook his arms and his eyelids fluttered and then opened wide as to focus on me. "What?" He started to sit up quickly but stopped as if the movement brought him great pain. It was then that I saw a tear on the elbow of the left shirt sleeve and the dry blood on his skin. My eyes went to his pants and saw the mud stains. It looked like a tear at the right knee. He straightened up. "Olivia, you're home. I mean, you've returned. What is today?" He scrubbed his cheeks with his dry palms vigorously and licked his lips. "What happened to you, Daddy?" I asked softly. Had he been in a fight, I wondered? "Happened? Your clothes are torn and you've hurt yourself. Oh, he said, blinking rapidly, his memory focusing. I had a little accident out back. It's nothing. It looks worse than it is. What sort of accident? I tripped on a stump. It was dark. What were you doing out back in the dark? What's going on here? Where's Belinda? I fired my questions quickly. He only heard one word. Belinda? He ran his right hand over his hair. Isn't she here? I don't know. I just came in. I haven't checked upstairs. What were you doing outside in the dark, Daddy? I repeated. Doing, he said, forcing a smile. It looked like his face had turned to glass. Twisting his lips shattered his cheeks. All the tiny veins came to the surface. Just taking a walk, enjoying the night air. Your mother and I used to do that a lot. You look like you took quite a fall, Daddy. You look like you were running, not walking, I said, my eyes narrowing with suspicion. He held his eyes on me. What really happened, Daddy? Lies between us are like fish of the water. They had a short, painful life. Can't fool you, can I, Olivia? Never could fool you, he said. His lips trembled, his whole face quaked, and it looked like it would really shatter like a piece of glass. What happened, Daddy? What went on out there? Did it have something to do with Belinda? He shook his head and looked about frantically for a moment. His lips moved, but no sounds emerged. Then he reached down to take hold of the neck of the bourbon, and he brought it to his lips and took a swig. I've been hearing his voice, he whispered. He leaned towards me, his eyes wide and wild. I've been hearing him cry, Olivia. What? I brought my hands to my throat and stepped back. Whose voice? Shh, he said, looking at the door. She doesn't know anything. Who? Carmelita. But she looks at me with those eyes of accusation sometimes, Olivia, he said, shaking his head. I think she hears him too. She wants to know what it's about. She told me yesterday she's thinking of leaving to go with her sister in New Haven. Jerome's already given me notice. He's leaving next Tuesday, going to Florida, he says. Then he took another swig of the liquor and closed his eyes. My heart was pounding. I felt like my ribs were knocking against each other. I took a deep breath. I knew what Daddy meant, but I had to hear him say it. Whose voice did you hear out there, Daddy? Who's crying? He opened his eyes and stared up at the ceiling. Her little one, the unnamed. I planted him like so much a seed. It always bothered your mother, Olivia. She used to stand by the window and look out back and think about him. She never said a word to you or Belinda, but sometimes at night she would wake up and then she would sob softly, and I didn't have to ask her why. I heard the same cry and ignored it. You don't hear anything, Daddy. It's your imagination. Maybe because you're drinking too much, I said. No, he insisted. Okay, Daddy, okay. You should go upstairs and get some sleep. I'll see if Belinda's home. Have you been to the office while I was away? I don't know, he said. I think I was there one day. Time seems to have flown by. Your honeymoon's over already? Yes, Daddy. Where's Samuel? He's at his father's house. I was hoping to take you out to dinner tonight, Daddy, and Belinda too. Oh, that's a nice thought. I'll just wash up and take a nap, and then we'll meet you and Samuel, he said. You took a very bad fall, Daddy. What? Oh, yes. I think I tripped over a rock and fell down a hill a bit. Down a hill? You mean you almost fell into the rocks? "Oh, no," he said, "it's nothing." He started to lift himself on the chair. I could see that the bruise on his leg was much more serious than he knew. It gave him great pain to put his full weight on the leg. "Maybe the doctor should look at you, Daddy." "Did Belinda know you fell?" I asked. "Belinda?" He started thinking. "Oh, now I remember. I think she's with one of her girlfriends. I think they went someplace." "When?" He scratched his head. "It seems like she left right after your wedding. And she hasn't been back since?" "I'm not sure," he said. "Oh, Daddy, you know you have to keep better tabs on her. You promised you would." I took hold of his right arm and guided him to the chair. He looked like he was in pain when he walked on that leg. "Are you sure you don't want to see the doctor today, Daddy?" "I'm fine. You don't have to hold on to me, Olivia." "Okay, I'm going to go and see if Belinda returned." The door to Belinda's room was open, and I did a quick perusal of her room and revealed that she hadn't been there for a while. I heard Daddy talking below and returned to the stairway. Carmelita had just joined him at the front of the stairway. "Is that you, Miss Olivia?" she asked, looking up at me. "I didn't know you had come home," she said. "I just arrived. Do you know where my sister is? I haven't seen her for days," Carmelita said. Daddy shrugged, and Daddy struggled on the stairs, pulling himself up the balustrade. I hurried down to help him because he wobbled. Carmelita was right beside him, too. We got him up to his room, and he went into the bathroom to undress and wash his bruises. "How long has he been like that?" I asked her. "He started the day after your wedding, Miss Belinda. He left and he was alone. In the middle of the night, I heard him out back and sent Jerome to look for him. Your father had drunk too much. Jerome brought him back twice, babbling, crying something awful. But the third time they had words. That's when Jerome gave him notice. And you're leaving too, I understand." "Yes," she said, "I can collect my Social Security now, and I'd like to enjoy my old age. My sister, who lost her husband last year, wants me to come live with her." I stared at her, and she shook her head. "I'm sorry, Miss Olivia, but with your mother gone, well, this just isn't a happy, bright place anymore. I'm sure you'll find someone else fast, but I'll stay as long as I can," she added. "Thank you. Where's Jerome?" "Oh, he goes to town when he's finished working his hours now, Miss Olivia. That's where he is. Your father won't let him do any work on the grounds anyway. He doesn't want him to touch anything. Flowers, bushes, no trimming, no digging. As you can see," she said, nodding at Daddy, "your father's been in a bad way, drinking too much. I'm glad you're home," she said. "If you need me, I'll be downstairs. Thank you, Carmelita." "I'm sorry, Miss Olivia. Your mother was the heart and soul of this house. With her gone, thank you, Carmelita," I said sternly. She had made her point. I didn't have to hear it continually. She pressed her lips shut and left the room. I knocked on the bedroom door. "Are you all right, Daddy?" "Yes," he said, "I'm fine. I'll just take a shower, and then you can tell me about your honeymoon." "Are you sure, Daddy?" "Yes," he said. I thought I would go to the office and see how the things were from the work. Just as I started down the stairs, the front door opened. First her laughter entered, and then Belinda followed, accompanied by some strange young man. He had his hand around her waist. She turned and they kissed in the entryway. the man's hand sliding down Belinda's back until he cupped her rear end and practically lifted her off the floor. She squealed with delight. "Belinda!" She broke away from him and gazed up at me, her hand going immediately to her lips, but her smile holding. "Oops," she said and hiccuped. The young man stepped back. He wore a yellow and white striped shirt and had long, greasy hair. He wore a faded pair of dungarees, and I was amazed to see he was barefoot too. Belinda's light green blouse was open enough to reveal almost her braless bosom. "Hello, Olivia. This is my sister, Olivia," she declared. I would like you to meet Brian." "Ryan," the young man corrected. "Oh, right. Ryan. Ryan, this is my older sister, Olivia. She was just married." "How was your honeymoon, Olivia? Was it bumpy out at sea?" I glared down at her. She wobbled and tried to hold her smile, then reached for the side of the door jamb to steady herself. I turned to the young man. "I think you better get going," I said. He appeared to sober up instantly. "Oh, sure, I can't stay anyway," he explained. "I have to go." "Now, just a minute," Belinda began. "I invited Brian to dinner tonight." "It's Ryan," he corrected again and backed away. "That's all right, I'm not hungry. Nice meeting you," he added, glancing up at me quickly, and left. "Hey," Belinda called after him. She turned her back to me and then looked at me. Her eyes were furious. "That's not nice, Olivia. He gave me a lift home all the way from," she hesitated, "from someplace far away." "You're drunk, Belinda, and you haven't been home since I left. Where have you been?" "With friends," she declared. She hiccuped and stumbled toward the stairway. "I have to get to the office," I said. "I'm not going to waste my time sobering you up. You should have been here looking out after Daddy. You're a selfish and inconsiderate person, Belinda, and one day you'll wake up and find yourself stranded on an island of insanity. And I won't come to rescue you, I promise," I said and walked past her. She tried to say something, but I slammed the door behind me before she could utter a word. My conscience told me that she might fall down the stairs attempting to get to her room, but I didn't care. If she did, it would serve her right. As I got into my car and drove to our offices, my anger was so hot I was sure smoke was coming out of my ears. What I found at the office confirmed my worst suspicions. Not only hadn't Daddy been there looking after our affairs, but he hadn't returned the phone calls. I went right to work, returning as much semblance of order as I could manage in the few hours I was there. Samuel called looking for me. "I had the feeling I would find you there when Carmelita told me you'd left the house hours ago." "I thought we weren't going back to work until tomorrow, Olivia," he complained when he heard what I was doing. "I don't have that luxury. My father let too many things go, Samuel. I won't be home until much later." "But what about our dinner? I made reservations at the club. We have people to meet." "I'm not hungry. Go without me if you want," I said. "This is ridiculous. Surely it can all wait another day," he moaned. "You might as well know right now that I don't procrastinate, Samuel. If something needs to be done, I do it." I told him in a tone of voice that would engrave the words in his brain. "Of course," he muttered. "Maybe I should come there to help you," he added, but without enthusiasm. "There's nothing you can do here. It would take longer to explain it to you first, Samuel." "I'm very upset," I said. when I told him about Belinda's behavior. It's better that I get to work to keep my mind off of it. All right, I'll go to the club, then I'll wait for you there. Maybe you'll finish in time, and don't wait supper for me. If I can come, I will, I promised, but I knew it was an empty promise. There was so much to do. I got lost in the work. When Samuel called again, he said, I expected that you'd still be there. I can't believe you're still at it, Olivia. Even I was surprised at the hour. I'd better call and see how my father's doing, I said, realizing that I never called him. I'll see you soon. When I called Daddy, the phone rang and rang until Carmelita picked up. Your father? I haven't seen him since we helped him upstairs. He fell asleep and didn't come down for supper. What about Belinda? I heard her in the kitchen a while after you left. Okay, Carmelita, call me if you need anything. Samuel was watching TV in our den when I returned to our new house. He wanted to know about the work. Suffice it to say it was considerable, Samuel, but there's a great deal left to do. Well, he said, slapping his hands together and rubbing his palms, I'll take up the slack, that's a promise. In the days and the weeks that followed, I became more and more concerned about Daddy. He returned to work, but I could see he was still drinking too much. Consequently, he wasn't taking good care of himself. Occasionally, he looked like he slept in his clothes that he wore to the office. It was pointless to ask Belinda, now that I was gone from the house and Daddy was distracted. She was like a balloon someone had released in the wind. There was no way to get control over her. Her whims blew her randomly from one place to another. She avoided me as much as possible, was rarely home when I visited, and if she was getting ready to meet someone. When Samuel saw what was happening to Daddy, he did try to help him. He visited as much as I did whenever Daddy didn't show up at the office. If he saw Belinda out at a bar or restaurant, he would try to get her to come home and stop drinking. Samuel was happy getting away from the office, despite his great oaths and proclamations to be at my side building the business. We need to socialize with other business people, Olivia, and you're not fond of this part. What you call fluff. I'll take care of it, he assured. Daddy didn't disapprove of what Samuel did. He even accompanied Samuel sometime to enjoy himself. We began to even start hosting our own elegant dinner parties, and through Samuel's socializing met more influential people, such as politicians and government officials. The social affair I looked forward to the most, of course, was Nelson Child's wedding. It had been months since I had seen him. He finished his legal education, passed the bar, and joined his father's firm. There were times I deliberately took a longer route just to ride past that sign. I would chastise myself for doing it, telling myself I was behaving like a lovesick schoolgirl. He wasn't my beau. He was marrying someone else, and I was married to someone else. What did I think I was doing? Everyone who had been invited to Nelson's wedding, knew how much preparation and thought was designing the affair. There were great expectations. Daddy and Belinda was invited, of course. On the day of the wedding, I went to Belinda's room and she was packing a bag to go on a trip that she was taking with new friends. Who are these people? I demanded. Just people I met. You wouldn't like them, she added quickly. Why, because they drink and they don't have jobs? I fired back at her. No, because they like to have more fun than work. So you won't be going to the wedding then, I asked. No, Olivia, you can have them all to yourself. I felt the heat rise in my neck and into her face. That's not funny anymore, Belinda. I wasn't the one in the boathouse, you were. Yes, but you wish you were, she countered. I felt as if the air around us had grown too hot to breathe. Your husband knows how you feel about Nelson, she continued. Did you say something stupid to Samuel? No, but he knows, I can tell. She started to pack again. You and I weren't exactly sweethearts, sleeping in separate rooms and separate beds. That's none of your affair. No, she said, laughing. It's not, and I'm glad, but maybe you're not giving Samuel enough of a chance to prove himself, she went on, defying my fury. Maybe if you did, you wouldn't dream so much of Nelson Childs. Stop it. All I'm saying is I think Samuel could be a good lover, isn't he? I wouldn't continue this stupid conversation any longer, but I warn you, if you should say any of this rubbish to anyone and I hear about it, you'll throw me out of my family? I know, she said. Don't worry, I don't care enough to say anything. I'm too busy having fun. At our expense. Don't you ever want to make anything of your life? I asked her. I think I am, she said. I'm making a good time of it. I left her and went to complain to Daddy, who simply shook his head. She'll settle down soon, Olivia. You're lying to yourself, Daddy. That's worse than lying to other people. Rather than thinking about this, I wanted to think about what I would wear at Nelson Child's wedding. Nothing I had in the closet looked good enough for me. I had to have something special. In the back of my mind, I hoped Nelson would glance at me and think maybe he did miss his chance. I recalled the dressmaker Mother had gone to when she wanted me to go out on a date. She showed me some of the latest fashions and designed a gown for me. When I saw what she intended, I couldn't help thinking Belinda would cry with green tears. It was an emerald green chiffon with sequins down both sides of the V-neck that plunged into the valley of my bosom, and sequins on the cuffs of my sleeves. It had a teardrop diamond necklace with matching earrings to complement it. I went shopping to find perfect pair of shoes. You're doing more preparation as a guest of the wedding than you did for your own, Samuel quipped. He smiled, and I wondered what was behind those laughing eyes. Many a truth was said in jest, and who knew what Belinda had really said to him. You think you would be proud of me, I replied, looking away. Oh, I am. Once again, we'll steal the limelight from Nelson and Louise. Why, that woman's going to come and hate you, Olivia. I hardly think so, I said. But in my secret place, deep in my own heart, I hoped he was right. But not because I stole the limelight at her wedding, but because I stole the light in Nelson Child's heart.